The Morristown Green, a central park echoing with the footfalls of Washington and his compatriots during the Revolutionary War, is not merely a serene escape, but a living testament to the town's pivotal role in shaping our nation. Morristown's history seamlessly intertwines with every individual who grew up there, creating a childhood rich in the echoes of the past and a vibrant spirit of community carried forward by each successive generation. These are their stories. This is Beyond the Green.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Green, where we talk about the people and places of Morristown. My name is Pete Barbonas, and welcome to another episode. We have a great show for you today. We are here today with the Executive Director of the Morris County Park System. He is also a 1984 Morristown High School graduate. Please help me welcome Dave Helmer to the show. Hey Dave, how are you?
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for the invitation.
I'm so excited to have you today because there's so much for us to talk about. First, let's start talking about where you grew up.
Sure. So my formative years were up until about 11 years old. I was in South Jersey in Burlington County.
Okay, wow.
So I
okay.
bring the Flyers and the Eagles and the Phillies up with me.
That's a little disappointing,
yes,
but let's keep that
that's all
quiet.
right. Moved into Morris Plains.
Okay.
Went through the Morris Plains School District.
Okay.
Went to as you said, Morristown High. Graduated in Morristown High.
Yeah.
Went off to college and played a couple of years of Division II soccer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Came home, worked a little bit in the private sector. I worked for Jim Weichert at Weichert Realtors and really as his benefits manager, and learned a lot in that industry.
Okay.
And then an interesting turn happened. My mother started a business in the U.S. Virgin Islands in St. Thomas, and I get a call one day, I have to do taxes, and I got 2 shoe boxes full of receipts, and because I have a bit of an accounting background.
Yeah.
And I said, I can't do that from here. I took a sabbatical from Weichert. I went down to the islands, lived there for a couple of years,
Wow.
came back north, and was doing basically the business bookkeeping in my house.
Yeah.
But wasn't really getting out. And I saw an advertisement for a part-time position at the Park Commission, and this is what brings me here today.
Yeah. So what year was that when you started it?
So I started as a part-timer in the Park Commission, wearing hiking boots and shorts in
Okay.
1997.
Okay.
In 97.
So almost 30 years ago now.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm coming on 29 in November, and
Yeah.
next year I'll be 30.
So we talked about this off air. There's 39 distinct areas to the Park
That's
Commission. By acreage, it's the largest park system in the whole state of New Jersey.
20,600 acres.
So in the last 30 years, what has been the biggest change you've seen in the park system itself?
Well, I can specifically point to the years of COVID.
Okay.
Where I think people's recreational practices
Mm-hmm.
changed dramatically and became permanent, parts of their lives. So, for example, the Wanaka Brook Reservation.
Yeah.
That is not only a paved trail system, but also an equestrian trail system.
Mm-hmm.
In its Marsh Township, Madison, and Harding Township.
Mm-hmm.
Our annual visitation was about 650,000 people a year.
Okay.
And a lot of that was, folks that were visiting every day.
Yeah.
Or you had across the street at the time was Verizon, now Atlantic
Yep.
Healthcare,
Sure.
every lunchtime. And we have car counters and people counters. Our last 3 years average visitation has been about 900,000 visitors.
Wow.
So it's maybe some new people introduced and looking
Mm-hmm.
for parks because that's what they were doing during COVID. And some is, instead of coming out once a week to walk, I walk 3 days a week. So we've seen that dramatically change in the visitation aspect. And then the technology's really changed the way people kind of move around and use parks and such. So, yeah.
Yeah. And, when we first talked about bringing you on the show, and I went through the website for the park system, I didn't realize that places like Speedwell Village were actually now controlled by the park system.
Right.
How did that come to be?
So that was, I was not yet executive director, but I was the director of recreation
Okay.
at the time. And I was part of that process. I actually remember the day Jack Schreier was freeholder at the time. Margaret Nordstrom was also a freeholder.
Mm-hmm.
And they were the Friends of Historic Speedwell Village. Jay Delaney was on the board, the former mayor that unfortunately
Sure.
passed some time ago. They weren't able to keep the facility in the condition it should have been kept as
Okay.
one of the 4 national landmarks in Morris County.
Yeah.
they came to the county freeholder board and said, we have an issue here. And of course, they turned to the Park Commission. My predecessor, Quentin Schleter, was really the impetus of moving that along. And as I said, I remember setting up the signing ceremony was in the Vale House. The county committed capital funds for 5 years to make improvements to the property and kind of started bringing it back alive. The Friends group was primarily volunteer-based. We had, seasoned historic staff that either went from historic Foster Fields or Cooper Mill, and made that property come to life again, right? So, I grew up in Marsh Plains, right? And we would drive down Speedwell Avenue every day to get to the high school. I didn't know who was responsible for what. And it was great when my kids were at the Alfred Vale School and they would come home and say, we just did a school trip to historic Speedwell. It made it come alive again.
Right.
And I think about the really rich history of that property is really not acknowledged in this day of social media.
Exactly.
And technology. But, it's a fabulous resource for the residents.
It is an amazing historical site that, as you and I talked, we wish more people understood the historical significance of it.
And it's not local, it's national.
It's national, exactly.
The telegraph was perfected at Speedwell. I believe they were using the telegraph as the third backup of communication on airplanes until a decade ago. Right? If the different communication levels went out, it would still be, dot, dot, dash, dash.
Exactly. And remember, that's where I think they put a 2-mile line and they did the first message. And I think it was a patient waiter or something like that. That was the message. My message would have been Longfellow is close today. But then we moved to Foster Fields with another great historical, living, breathing historical site there, which we just talked about. There was a film production there recently.
So the first dedicated living historic farm in New Jersey was Foster Fields. And it's on the National and State Register of Historic Places. It has a multi levels of history. Our historic interpretation and programming really speaks to mostly during the industrial era, right? We don't want to step on the national park's toes, right? They've got the revolutionary time down. So the innovation of Charles Foster of going to the Isle of Jersey and bringing back Jersey cows and trying to have a sustainable farm. He was not a gentleman farmer, even though he had some resources. But who built the Willows, the prime house on the property? General Joseph Revere, the great-grandson of Paul Revere, who served in the Civil War, and when he came back from the Civil War, wanted a place of contemplation away from the war scenario. So there's levels of history that, as you started, we don't really speak to that, and a lot of it's local, and we tend to focus on national and international history. But so much you learn happens or happened in the area. I could tell you stories about our headquarters at the Lewis Morris Park and the Cultural Center. It was a spa originally constructed in 1929 for the ailments of the time. It wasn't a TB, because TB was big, but it was like therapeutic. And then as we were getting closer to World War II, the folks that were running the facility as a spa were actually bringing folks from Germany over that were going to, probably go into the concentration camps or such, right? So the actress who did Betty Boop was there.
Really?
Otto Klinginger, the composer who was Colonel Klinks from Hogan's Heroes' father, was there. But if you ever go to the Rabbinical College in Morristown, and you look at this, so our building is like this Spanish-style architecture in the middle of the woods. Kind of if you go up to the Rabbinical College, you'll take a look at their main building. It's of the same architectural style. Why is that? Because one of the individuals that was saved and brought to the Cultural Center when it was a spa was the first Rebbe of that Hasidic order.
Wow.
And he started the Rabbinical College, after the war, I guess, he started that campus. So once a year, the college, the campus brings students, high school age students from all over the country that are part of that Hasidic sect to see the facility in which their first rebbe
Wow.
started. They gave me a flag last year, and we did the dance in the auditorium. So they're just different cultures. We touch
Yeah.
different people. It adds breadth and
Yeah.
color to Morris County.
Yeah. As you know, I'm going to tell you this. Something that kind of a little bit disappointed me. Over the last few years, we had Hamilton on Broadway. We saw how popular it was. I was hoping that would translate into a little more tourism into this area.
Right.
When you look at the history, we lived and breathed the Schuyler's, the Hamiltons, not only just the Washingtons of the world, but we were the epicenter of the Revolution. I believe we were the ammunition capital of the Revolutionary War.
And the Civil War.
And, yeah.
The mining industry in the Mine Hill and Rockaways
Right.
and Dovers, yes.
Right. And so it's kind of frustrating as somebody who I love history. Nobody took advantage of that situation. That, hey, like if you saw Hamilton on Broadway, come to Morristown
Right.
and see where the Schuylers lived.
See where they dated.
Yeah,
See where
exactly.
it first began. Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
I will say, I think on the cusp of the quincentennial, our 250th anniversary, there is a lot of good work being done now between county agencies, a lot of other historic nonprofits, businesses. Like I sit on a committee
Yeah.
where we've got folks from the Hyatt, we have folks from Villa Restaurants, we have folks from the Morris County Economic Development Corps. I think there's a great push and a realization that this can be a destination,
Yeah.
and not just a drive-through destination if we see the sign for Jockey Hollow
Right.
or Washington headquarters on 287.
Right.
I think there's a real focus now. The Morris Economic Development Corps, Megan Hunter's group, has received a state grant for promotions of districts.
Yeah.
The county commissioners, I think they understand that as another layer. If we're going to bring all this good businesses in the area, where are the employees? What do they do? Who's filling these high-density units in Morristown in the area? They need a
Right.
place to recreate, a place to learn.
Right.
I'm always a cup-half-full guy, even in a worst-case scenario. There's opportunity is for us to go after, and even your program
Yeah.
brings a message to a different audience.
Yeah.
You might have the audience like me that's still watching, PBS, but it really is. We have to figure out how to
Yeah.
attract
Yeah.
that audience. There are different ways of doing it. If you're a hiker or a
Yeah.
bicyclist, we can teach you history along the way.
Yeah.
Marty Epstein's, the Grand Fondo group that he started years ago.
Yeah.
They have the history ride as
Yeah.
one of their races. So there are ways of doing it to
Yeah.
meet folks. Yeah.
Talking about paths, I have a question for you. Does the county control the Patriots' paths?
95% of it.
I have a
correct.
question about
Sure.
that. They've been there since I was a kid and all that.
Mid-60s.
Yeah. So I mean,
A
yeah.
little earlier than me too.
But my thing is, were those existing paths? Like, do we know, or were they later? Were they kind of like, were they old paths that were kind of cleaned out, or were they just paths that were just created and just for the
Yeah.
namesake called Patriots Path?
It really is a great question, and timing is interesting. So the original impetus was at the time it was they are now the New Jersey Conservation Foundation, but it was like the Conservation Foundation. I think it was the Morristown Junior League.
Okay.
It was the Park Commission, and the impetus was to buffer the Whippany River.
Okay.
So from basically Cedar Knolls section of Hanover Township out to Lewis Morris Park. It was to
Okay.
try to protect the river from being developed on top of,
Okay.
right? Farms were being sold, large lots were being sold. And you know who came up with the name, if you know local history, is John Cunningham,
Okay.
who was our local historian at the time, came up with the name Patriots Path for this
Okay.
group. And what happened was the Park Commission had hired a retired engineer to be the spokesperson. He went out to every township along this linear route and said, can you put Patriots Path in your master plan? Because one day we're coming to you. I don't think they knew that they weren't going to be, further west than Morris Township.
Yeah.
We're now all the way out to Stevens State Park
Yeah.
in a different county. So that doesn't answer your point about the route. So right now, as part of the 250th anniversary, our committee, the county committee, is working on getting a national historic marker
Okay.
for the Washington Rochambeau Trail that actually went through Morris County.
Okay.
So I think, General George and General Rochambeau from France started at West Point, and they were making their way. Ultimately, we found out to Virginia, but George made his way to, Washington headquarters in Jockey Hollow. And this route, there's a nonprofit that supports this route, not highly identified in New Jersey, but we know it went through New Jersey. So in order to get a marker, we have to do some primary historic investigation and secondary. So one of our staff folks, Katie Humphreys, who's our registrar, has found a primary source from the Princeton Library online that Rochambeau's map maker drew a map from West Point in different sections all the way down to Virginia.
Wow. And
that route, so it also has secondary provenance
Sure.
with some of other groups, Erskine's maps, went through one of our parks in Parsippany called Old Troy County Park.
Okay.
But Rochambeau and George made their way to this area together, basically along like or Beverwick Road, Whippany Road.
Sure.
So the route of the trail he took went through the Frelinghuysen Arboretum.
Wow.
So our idea is if we get acknowledged a placker, but guess what? You know where Patriots Path goes through? The Frelinghuysen Arboretum makes its way to Acorn Hall, makes its way to Washington headquarters and connects with the trail. So history down the road, to your point, do we know? We now know with primary provenance that Patriots Path, at least certain sections, were actually traveled by George and General Rochambeau.
That's incredible.
Something even neater about that project is we're working with the New Jersey chapter of the International Society of Arborists, and they do major volunteer projects in parks throughout the state. But because it's the 250th next year, they want to plant 13 trees, each representing the original 13 colonies.
Yeah.
That's planned for the Frelinghuysen Arboretum. So if we're lucky enough to get awarded the national marker, this national marker will now have these 13 trees at the Frelinghuysen Arboretum along Patriots Path, and you could start from Frelinghuysen, you can meet the folks at Acorn Hall and walk over to Washington headquarters. So there is some provenance that shows some sections of Patriots Path were part of the Rev.
That's
That's
a great
Some
story.
of that stuff gets me. I'm not a historic.
Yeah.
I don't want to say geek is the wrong word, but when you learn about the richness of our community, and as you know, Morristown itself, and stories about Antoine LeBlanc, there's all sorts of levels of history. It's our job in parks is to try to figure out how to make it approachable. Right, we're not in class, but you leave with a little knowledge that you didn't have before.
You know, it's funny. We hear about living here in town. We hear. We have, Arnold's Tavern, or is it,
Benedict Arnold.
Benedict
Arnold.
Was it Jacob's Tavern or Arnold's Tavern?
It was there's Arnold's Tavern was on the green.
Was that the one that Benedict Arnold's had the trial there?
That's correct.
So
Century 21, that side.
That's
I think
the other side. But on towards Washington Street.
Right.
Here's a funny story. In Bergen, on the Bergen County, Rockland County line.
Okay.
There's a small town of Tapan.
Oh yeah.
Okay. There's this tavern there called the 76 Tavern. Okay. It's the oldest tavern in the whole state of New York. Okay. When they caught Benedict Arnold, they brought him down, and he was housed in the 76 Tavern. Okay. Before they shipped him to Morristown.
Right.
A mile away is what they call the DeWint House.
Okay.
The DeWint House was Washington's headquarters.
Okay.
In New York. It's kind of, now it's not as big as the Ford Mansion is. It's much smaller. But when you think about the history and of this whole area, it is just incredible how it just and then up the road from there, about another mile, is where they hung Major Andre. It's called Andre Hill.
Okay.
And you can go up the hill, and it's a circle. And in the middle of the circle, there's a monument where they hung him. And I'm like, a little creepy, but okay. But it is what it is.
Sure, everybody's interested in a different level. However you can attract somebody to impart a story.
Yeah.
is it's our job to the multifaceted layers.
Yeah,
As
yeah.
I told you earlier,
Yeah.
you started with foster fields, and
Yeah.
it's a farm. It is a working farm. It's a historic farm.
Yeah.
It's a touchable farm. It's not a stand behind a glass wall and not
Right.
looking. You participate. You husk the corn, and you. One of our long-term commissioners, restored a tractor, and I want the
Okay.
kids to sit on the tractor.
Yeah.
And then that's outside, and you take pictures with that. In fact, we had a group of representatives from North Macedonia. Were in the
Okay.
state, and they
Uh-huh.
were as part of a program. We're visiting different county facilities, and we showed them the farm because North Macedonia has
Yeah.
farming, and they all gravitated to this
Yeah.
tractor and wanted a picture around it, right? Because we have something that looks like there. So it's all different levels. So I was going with Foster Fields. Caroline Foster, never married.
Mm-hmm.
She was a very independent woman. She was. We're told in our logs, because Charles Foster kept daily logs of farm activity. Caroline was actually one of the first female deputy sheriffs in
Wow.
Morris County. So during World War I,
Yeah.
there were men were going off to war, and so her friends gave her first car
Okay.
that she had to keep in a neighboring property because her father didn't want her to have a car.
Sure.
But there's also one of her cars is called the Hupmobile.
Okay.
And here's a storyline for golfers. How would you get golf at Foster Fields? It's
Yeah.
a farm. Well, the Hupmobile was designed where on the side of the car, if you can imagine where your gas tank is now, a rectangular door, a trunk, specifically made to slide in your golf clubs. So remember back then, golf clubs weren't these big bags or these small bags.
Sure.
Well, who started the Morris County Country Club? It was originally 5 women who started the club because the men wouldn't let them play on their clubs. Now, the men, some years ago, I'm told, took it over
Okay.
because it was such a great idea. Well, Carolyn Foster was one of those individuals, and I think Fannie Moore, local historic
Yeah.
folks that,
Yeah.
it's just a neat story. And part of what we're so involved with that is about 8,500 acres of parkland were donated by folks to the park system. So the Frelinghuysen Arboretum, Seton Hackney Stables at Lewanika Brook Reservation was donated. You go out into the Chesters, the K Center, Mrs. K and her properties. The granddaughter of Martha Brooks Hutchinson was one of the first 2 women to graduate from MIT as a landscape architect. I'm probably, as I go around, I'm probably missing a spot, but there's some really neat stories if you delve past the sign.
Yeah.
Who walked here, who
Yeah.
played here, what was here before.
Yeah.
Fannie Moore, the reason Seton Hackney Stables is Seton Hackney is Hackney was the style of horse. That was the horse with the carriage behind it that you raced.
Yeah.
And Seton was the horse's name.
Oh.
She had an international award-winning horse called Seton Pippin, who she had to retire because she said it won too many races and she wanted other people to have a chance. So if you go down to Seton Hackney and you see that judges stand, that was a track. That was a Hackney track. So if you're interested in horse, again, different layers of interest.
Yeah, and that's a great segue to my next set of questions. Moving away from the historical aspects of the parks, acquisition. So as you said, some land was donated. How was the other land? Was it open space preservation? How did that come to be?
So, the New Jersey Green Acres program, which began, I want to say, we have a plaque in our offices, I think 1960-ish.
Okay.
Started having funding for acquisition projects. Before the 60s, there were some projects that used capital funding, county capital funding, not a lot. Land values were a lot different back then, too, than they are now. And then in 1993, 94, the county and the voters and the residents of Morris County established the Morris County Open Space Trust Fund program that allowed both the Park Commission, the county MUA, and towns to preserve land. Now that program's gone on to historic preservation, trail design and construction, flood mitigation, farmland preservation. And there will be a ballot question, actually, it's a nice segue, on the November ballot to establish a stewardship program.
Okay.
Morris County's done a great job, and the towns in Morris County have done a wonderful job preserving open space, but we have to maintain it, we have to protect it. We've got blights, emerald ash borer, beech leaf disease, things like that. So this program will help towns not maintain like playgrounds and ball fields, but the natural resources.
Yeah.
So, I think Morris County probably, based upon its density of population, has done probably, one of the best county jobs you could with an open space program.
Yeah.
And every, county administration has been supportive of it from the very beginning. And the residents, every time there was a new ballot question, it typically won than any other ballot, 65%, 75% acknowledgement.
So does the county, we were talking about Lake Apacon before, is the county responsible for Lake Apacon?
No, it is a state water body.
Okay.
There is a state park on the water body. But not to, speak negatively about, maintenance of our assets at the state level.
Yeah.
There are two organizations, and along with the 5 communities around the lake, that really have said, we need to help protect our resource. One is the Lake Apacon Commission, which was a commission established with representation from around not just Morris, but our friends in Apacon, because Apacon's on a bordering town.
Yeah.
And then there's a nonprofit group called the Lake Apacon Foundation.
Okay.
Who is they're making the lake come alive, promoting the lake's attributes, going after grant money. You may have heard a couple of years ago, the HAB, algal bloom impacted the lake. They were going after grants left and right, and we work collaboratively with them. There is a collaboration between the state Marine Police and the Sheriff's Department,
Sure.
Patrolling the lake, because the lake is so busy. But we do have a public marina on the lake, which is an interesting story. It was donated to the Park Commission by Robert E. Lee.
Really?
Yeah.
That's why they call it Lee.
Lee's Park Marina. But I always tell a story. My predecessor would say his assistant, fielded a call one day. She called across the room. Robert E. Lee's on the phone and he wants to give you some land. I mean, that's this. It's a hang up. No, like the third time he takes the call, and it's Mr. Robert E. Lee, who's alive to this day.
Yeah.
Said, I want to donate my property to you on Lake Apacon. I do not want to see it developed into high-density housing.
Fair enough.
And so it's a public marina. I think we launch 5,000 boats a year from it. We've got 99 or a little bit more slips. And we're getting ready we finally, after all these years, have rehabilitated a pavilion that Mr. Lee bought. He and his family built on the property, which will be open to the public for private events and such.
Yeah.
And we've got some great, rich historic images of the property from our friends out in that neck of the woods.
That's awesome. Marty
Kane of the Mount Arlington at historical. some really neat pictures they used to rent bathing suits for 25 cents a day.
Yeah.
So you're thinking 1930s, 1940s, who rents bathing suits?
Yeah, and we're, and talking about that area, we're old enough to remember Bertrand's
Bertrand's Island,
which was, it was
it was our great adventure.
It was our great adventure.
Right,
it was amazing.
It was before Jungle Habitat. It was before all that. Yeah.
And I think there's townhouses or condos there now that were built 20, 25 years ago.
But there is an individual in that neck of the woods who, has a vision of bringing back Lake Apacon to its heyday.
Yeah.
You're never going to see Bertrand's Island and the rides and stuff. But has really kind of invested his own money in making that area have some great vitality.
Yeah.
And I would say to anybody, if you're interested in that area, if you're interested in nice restaurants on the lake and looking at the water, look into the Lake Apacon Foundation, and they have rich history maps they can provide the history. They run an educational pontoon boat, so school groups can go on the lake. And they also have something called the Miss Lotta, which is a cruise ship, for the lake. And they do history tours. You can. I have one of my park commissioners doing his 60th anniversary on it.
Wow.
It holds about, don't quote me, about 50 people or so. But it's affordable, accessible opportunities to learn more about your community.
Yeah. Let's talk about, does the county have any role in maintaining what used to be the Morris Canal?
So we collaborate with the Canal Society of New Jersey on trying to bring the canal back.
Okay.
We have helped preserve land as partners. So in the case of the Borough of Wharton,
Yep.
who, if you want to do a show, go to Canal Day in Wharton in August, and thousands of folks, they bring back, they do the little canal boat ride back and forth. So they've restored a section of the canal, a canal house.
Okay.
We have a couple pieces of property. Torrance County Park has the bed of the canal along the Rockaway River. Ours is more, we work collaboratively with states, folks at the state level and the counties that have the canal through it about trying to get trail connectivity across the canal.
Sure.
But Wharton does a phenomenal job promoting the Morris Canal.
So, I think last year, the Morristown area got one of the top 10 places to move, I think, in the United States. So you have a lot of people moving into the area who don't really know what the county has to offer. If someone came to you and said, hey, if you were going to make a recommendation, if you're new to the area, top 3 parks to visit, what would be your top 3 parks?
This is where you get me into trouble. So I have to do it based upon the top 3 activities. Now, I will say, my wife and I met at Menon Arena.
Okay.
Our second date was at Willowwood Arboretum.
Okay.
And we live locally, and our kids my kids play at Central Park. So I would say, from an active recreational pursuit, Central Park of Morris County, the former Greystone Hospital campus, is a wonderful asset to the region. Not just because that's where our really one outdoor active area is with the turf fields, but great hiking paths, the high school cross-country races that happen there. We have our nonprofit group, the Park Alliance, raised money to build the county's first all-access playground. Integration of folks of all abilities as opposed to separate facilities.
Yeah.
We worked with the Jets. The Jets came in and helped construct it. So I would say in the modern days, Central Park is a place that's more than just ball fields. So maybe don't go there on a Friday, Saturday in the fall.
Sure.
But go during the weekday, and there's just wonderful walking paths.
Yeah.
We partnered with the Tiffany's Blue Box Company years ago to do a path around the old ice pond on the property. We had a group of, actually started with, I think, folks from Marsh Plains, established our first disc golf course is there. No joking aside, I had the luxury of having my office at the Frelinghuysen Arboretum for years.
Okay.
But Willowwood Arboretum, different type of garden. It's not like Frelinghuysen. You're not getting the roses, and you're not getting the designed flower beds. But I always say to people, that's your Valentine's Day date. If you want to make an impact, you take your significant other out to Willowwood, go out to Chester, visit the restaurant. You can do things there. And again, not necessarily, I'm not picking favorites, but we just opened a 5.1 mile bike ped path. Okay. That goes from the Riverdale-Pequannock border through Pequannock to the Wayne train station in Passaic County.
Wow.
10-foot wide paved trail, busy as all get out. So, and listen, we have hidden gems. Foster Fields. I will still go on the property after work, and when they've planted the purple potatoes, I'll help pick the purple potato. Sure. I have the best job in the world. But I'm always happy to take. You want to call, you want to send me an email and say, I'm looking to do X. We have an old speakeasy up in Kinnelon and at Silas Condit County Park.
Really?
That was during Prohibition a speakeasy. It has the original bar. It actually has the door to the tunnel when they were running from the G-Men. There's some neat locations throughout the county that just explore.
Because like we were talking about, there's so much, there's so much in this area that kind of gets lost in everyday life. I think, with so much technology now, and, what I would love to see is you see all these social media influencers, like, I would love for them, especially with the 250th, to come to the county, to come to Morristown, to come to the plethora of history we have, and do take pictures
Yeah,
here,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
just,
yeah,
there's so much here, you know. It doesn't have to be some exotic location. It
right.
can be right in your backyard.
Yeah, we have sites that have that level of notoriety. So Pyramid Mountain Natural Historic Area
Yeah.
has something called Tripod Rock,
Mm-hmm.
this big boulder that sits on these three little boulders. I mean, that's your social media image because it's just enough off the ground, and how many people have their pictures where they can slide under it and just their feet are hanging out. It looks like the boulders
Yeah,
landed on
yeah.
it. Again, it's what your interests are.
Yeah.
And even just your own health. You know, we've worked with Atlantic Healthcare years ago to put together a list of 30-minute hikes.
Okay.
Right, just move for 30 minutes.
Yep.
Lawanaca Brook, it's easy. I'm going to go there. But like, if your child or yourself has an interest in agriculture or farming and want to see animals, walk 30 minutes at the farm. Right? You have a
Yeah.
little bit of it, and you don't even know you're moving, right? Because you're
Yeah.
so interested going from point A to point B.
Yeah.
We just need spot.
Yeah.
Our recreation staff has done a phenomenal job at our Sunrise Lake Beach area. at
Sunrise Lake,
Oostmark.
yep.
We had the first Wibbit in the area, you know, that floating obstacle course. Go to our website, you know, www.marsparks.net. It's a new website, robust. Get on our mailing list. You know, pick and choose your interests.
Yep.
Great programming,
Yep.
phenomenal programming.
Let's talk about Menin Arena. I think it's been around 50 years now.
Oh, no, I think we're now at 60.
Is it 60?
Yeah, 1970, so do the math for me, 1972?
So it's
was
53 years
constructed-
old.
yes,
53
the
years
first
old.
rink, yeah.
Yeah. What many people don't know who are new to the area, the Menin Company was next door to it, hence the name.
Correct.
How did that work out? Were
Sure,
you guys
sure.
taking that over?
So we do a pretty good job. We have an oral history. Our first director of the Park Commission was Russ Myers.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that sat with Mr. Menin, sat with Mrs. Kay, sat with Ms. Frelinghuysen and Ms. Foster.
Mm-hmm.
He developed the relationships. He was on the Morristown Chamber of Commerce, it was called at the time,
Okay.
and the Morristown Rotary Club. These were the folks that were, you know, connected to business leaders. And there was a push from a constituency saying, we need an indoor ice rink in Morris County. We're traveling to Newark. I forget the name of the rink in Newark that was outside. There weren't
Yeah.
a lot of, I think Cody was constructed at the time.
Okay.
We need this because, you know, we have a plethora of folks that skate. And they picked a couple locations, like they looked at actually Lewis Morris Park because we
Okay.
own the land already. Wasn't the right location. They actually looked at Lawanaca Brook. If you go into the main entrance on South Street, the open area to the right, they looked at that. Not
Okay.
a good location. And Russ Myers served on the Chamber of Commerce with Mr. Menin
Okay.
at the time, and said, I mean, this is what the oral history says. Russ walked into his office on Hanover Avenue, threw his hat, you know, because that we're talking, you know, they're still wearing the hats,
Yeah.
and Mr. Menin says to him, "All right, Baldy, what do you want?" I mean, they had that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
It was, we're looking for land to construct an ice skating arena. And at the time, Mr. Menin said, you know, we have this land next door, the property where the arena is. I don't think we're ever going to build on that. We'll give you that land. So the original acreage, I think, was 15 acres, and it took us from where you see the rink on it didn't include actually that front area where the rugby field was.
Okay.
That was actually the Route 20, that was going to be the Route 24 turnaround, because they were going to connect Route 24 from behind now where the ShopRite is,
Yeah.
all the way down to where 24 is now.
Okay. Okay.
And all the way back, they had at the time, because they were still manufacturing at the company, they had what they call a side rail. So they had coming off the main rail line to get their materials, because it wasn't trucking, you know, back then as frequently.
Yeah.
They gave us all that land. And Mr. Menin wanted to honor his dad. That's why George was the son and William G. is the
Okay,
father.
okay.
Wanted to honor his father. So the county funded the construction of that rink. The interesting story, there's a connection between that and Pyramid Mountain.
Okay.
So if you know Pyramid Mountain, one of our phenomenal natural areas in the county, located in Montville, Kinnelon, and Boonton Township. It was a year later, and Mr. Menin said to Russ, you know what, I made a mistake. We need that side rail. We're not done yet. We don't think we're going into trucking. We're still going to... Well, the property was already given to the Park Commission. So the only way for a public entity that now it's on something called our Recreation Open Space Inventory, you can't just give it away.
Yeah.
It has to go through the State House Commission in Trenton. And he has to buy his land back that he donated just a year before.
Oh.
That land was valued at $2 million.
Wow.
That $2 million, the Park Commission couldn't just use. A diversion value had to be used for park improvement or preservation of land. That first $2 million was used to preserve the first track at Pyramid Mountain. So the Menon family, and I think there are 2 or 3 sons and a daughter, I don't know who are still around. I don't know if they know that actually in Morris County, their family's history actually preserved one of Morris County's, I will say, best natural assets.
Wow.
From a preservation perspective.
It's a great story.
But that property has even more history. It was the Rockaway River Country Club that burnt down. The family that owned it, the land, it basically took you from what is now, Martin Luther King, basically to the edge of the Menon property.
Yeah.
I'm told that the first Youth World Series of Baseball actually happened there before it went out to Pennsylvania.
To Williamsport?
To Williamsport. There was a racetrack where they raced those open air cars, where you, So there is a rich, the Morristown Library. There a genealogical section that has all sorts of historic pictures. Is a treasure trove of what this area looked like, back then. But so that's how it happened. So they didn't contribute to the construction, and the Park Commission is dedicated to I tell that story.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, the county freeholders, when they were freeholders at the time, took their meetings on the road. You just didn't go to the courthouse. They went to towns throughout the county. So we hosted a meeting on Rink 1 in August, on the slab in Rink 1. And I tell this, to this day, tell the story. Because would the skaters of Morris County have had an ice rink if it was not for Mr. Menon? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Was the deal made that the name would always stay Menon? Or is it done out of respect now? Or to maintain that historical?
Yeah, so I don't have any documentation, but when the Park Commission, so one of the negative aspects of how the Park Commission established its parks was different than other counties. Like if you go to Somerset County, wonderful park system, they will have parks that have both horticultural sites, historic, and active recreation. We established our parks with distinct representation. So our problem was it's Menon Sports Arena. It's the Frelinghuysen Arboretum, if you can actually say the 2 words, and who knows what Arboretum is and what Frelinghuysen is. And at the bottom in small letters, a facility of the Morris County Park Commission. So to this day, people will say, well, I didn't know. Oh, I didn't know. The Frelinghuysen Arboretum with those big white entryway and the name, I don't know if it's a public facility and free to access.
Yeah.
So if it was Morris County Park Commission and then Menon Sports Arena, it would be a different story.
Yeah.
So that's sometimes the messaging when you talk about how do you introduce facilities.
Yeah.
They just don't know who's the steward.
Yeah.
And do they care who the steward is as long as they can access it? But
Yeah.
to answer your question is, if it's not written, it's our integrity to remember the history. Because you can do a whole story on the Menon Company, and he had a little pharmacy in New York City, and he was going to expand, and I think it was the talcum powder. I mean, there's a story there where that was a privately operated facility until Colgate-Palmolive
bought him over,
and how many of our local residents worked there?
Yeah,
like Greystone Hospital. The human story, aside from the therapeutic design of that hospital, is all the folks in the area that worked there, that had houses there. Yeah. You could go on forever.
Ever. Exactly. Yeah. Well, we could go on forever, but we're just right about up to our time right now, Dave. But listen, I would love to sit down with you again, especially as we cross over into 2026 and we celebrate the 250th in America, and we can talk about what exactly the county is going to do to celebrate that, because there's so much that's going to happen over the next year or so to celebrate Morris County's role in the Revolutionary War and in America's history.
Yes.
So, Dave Helmer, thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for the invite.
It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Once again, guys, thanks for watching Beyond the Green. I'm Pete Barbonas. And until next time, be good to each other, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.